Alrighty, it's 5:30 over here on the West Coast, 8:30 on the East Coast. Hello, hello, and we are live. Cool. Trying to wait for some people to enter. I'm on time this time, as the other time I had issues with the time due to doctor's appointment. But yeah, how's everyone doing in on January 29th? In January, I was going to ask because I'll say that for myself. So I grew up in Massachusetts, and I have become such a wimp since moving to California when it comes to the cold. I just cannot take the cold. We got someone in here. Yo, Chad Money Minutes, what's going on? How you doing? Actually, Chad's over there down in Florida. I wonder if Florida's been actually no, my brother was telling me that Florida's been freezing. He lives down there. He says that at least somewhere near Miami, he's like, all right, maybe he's just like me, becoming a wimp since moving to a warm place. But man, I've been chilly out here in LA. But yeah, so I don't know. It's funny because I remember before moving out here how much I was like shoveling snow back in Massachusetts and just dealing with all the different things with weather, whether it be just rain, just the weather is just brutal. I remember most of the time I was in Mass. So to come out here and have it be, I don't know, what is it, 60 degrees, and I'm just like bundled up and I'm cold and I'm just like, oh wow, it's so chilly out here. I'm just like, what have I become? I can't take it anymore when I've gotten so accustomed to the LA life where I'm just used to it being warm all the time, and now I got to deal with just slight chilliness in January. Chaz says it's a little bit chilly, but not bad. Yeah, that's really how it is here. But I've just gotten so used to it. I'm just so used to the nice weather. So, but cool. Well, welcome, welcome. We let a few other people in here, and I'll go over the topic when it makes more sense to use the travel portal. And I'm starting to see some things where it's making me think that the travel portal, not everywhere, but there's some instances where I go, huh, you know what? This and also the airplane card that I like to talk about in here can make a lot of sense if you want to travel to these places for a few different reasons. So, yeah, I'm going to get into that. Let's see. Cool. We got 3 people in here. All right. I always like today, as long as there's a few people and we got some comments, so I know that the audio is good and people can hear me, and that's great. I can start talking. Yeah. So as you see the title, when does it make more sense to use the travel portal? Get to my banners over here. So this question started to come over to me because I started to wonder, does it make more sense to redeem when prices are cheap? Sorry, does it make sense to redeem when prices are cheap? So what I mean by that is not that, oh, you're going to get a bad deal for your points. That's not really what I mean when I say that. It's more of if you're going to a place where prices are cheap when it comes to redeeming right now, I'm more specifically talking about hotels, then does it make sense to even redeem your points with partners versus just finding another hotel around there where you can end up redeeming through the travel portal that could end up being probably just as good, but it's just not connected to some of the big names that we may know. And that's really what kind of got me into thinking about this topic. I've been thinking about it for a little bit. It kind of started last year, and it's trickled into this year due to another buddy who's getting married overseas. I got a buddy who's getting married overseas this year, and I got another buddy who's getting married overseas next year. And it's kind of got me thinking about, okay, well, redeeming points in these places, does it make sense if you're going to be going to cheaper places? So before I get into that, I just want to drop Points Travel 101. For those of you who don't know, Points Travel 101 is my course. You go to pointstravel101.com, and on pointstravel101.com, you can learn how to book like an expert. So I feel that I know that I'm an expert when it comes to booking points and miles trips. And if you want to feel confident when doing it, instead of just earning your points and not really getting outsized value when the options are there, then check out Points Travel 101 and you'll be able to go through my course. And after you're done with it, you will feel confident with making your award bookings. And I also have a newsletter to where I've been sending out different deals. I've also been doing it on my community page, but I'm mainly going to try to get this just on the newsletter. And if you want to see some different award deals out there, sign up for my newsletter on pointstravel101.com. And that is completely free. I'm just going to send you information, mainly just being deals out there when it comes to different points miles reward options. That is pointstravel101.com. Yeah, just a quick plug. Okay, so going back to the main topic of the live. So does it make sense to redeem when prices are cheap? So the question I'm having here is, how often are we checking the cash costs of properties around that are not part of the big chains? So as compared to being part of those big major hotel chains, which it's the first thing that we always look at. It's the first thing I know that I always look at is I go out there and I go, okay, is there availability with Hyatt? What is going to be my value I'm going to be getting with my Hyatt points? Is there availability with Hilton when it comes to some of their standard prices compared to when Hilton just has those outrageous prices? What is the value I'm going to be getting with Hilton points? You can do the same thing with IHG. Marriott's more fixed, so it won't really work as much with them, but et cetera down. So what's been making me think a little bit differently about this is that, so I went to, well, it's a few things. I went to Bali, and as I went over to Bali, before I went over there, I was looking at different hotels where I could stay at. And since I have the high tier globalist status, I was like, okay, well, I want to stay at a Hyatt property. So I started looking at the different ones. There's the Hyatt Regency, there's the Andaz, there's the Alila and Seminyak. There's all these different properties out there. And what ended up happening was, as I'm looking at these properties, I remember just seeing numerous different videos of people staying at really nice places that were not expensive, and they weren't connected with like major chains out there. So as I saw that and I would see the different places and they were right in the areas that I would be wanting to stay at, I started wondering, is there like a premium I'm paying to be staying with Hyatt or with Hilton? Because the price point with these properties is like significantly higher than some of these other ones. And from what I see from some of these other ones, it seems like you're getting really good stuff. So I don't 100% understand why like I would necessarily have to stay at these properties, other than the fact that I just want to redeem points and not really be paying out of pocket. Because I would think that in some instances over here in the States, like, okay, if there's going to be properties that we're going to stay at where we go, okay, well, I'm going to redeem it. Or at least this is what the program's hope. We redeem it, it's 20,000 points, and it only ends up being $250 if this is with Hyatt. So it kind of brings your cents per point down for the value for the points, and then the hotel can end up winning. Well, we want to be able to try to find something that ends up being 20,000 points, may end up being, say, $400, which is like the Alila in Seminyak, and then we stay out there. But if you look at properties in Bali near Seminyak, you could stay at some properties where if you went through a travel portal and only redeemed 15,000 points, well, you could stay at some really nice properties that are on par with the Alila in Seminyak, except for it's just not connected with Hyatt. So you still get to stay at a very nice property, yet it's just not connected with them. And this, if you go onto something like hotels.com, you'll be able to just see numerous different properties all around that aren't part of the major chains. And you realize that if you just went through a travel portal, then you could be able to spend less points to be able to stay at these different properties, especially if you don't have status with any of them. Spend less points to go to these different properties that are beautiful and gorgeous and have a great time. So that's really where this is kind of coming from. I'm just going to check the comments right here. M2K, what's going on? How you doing? Welcome. I don't know if you were at the last live I did it. I think it was a couple weeks ago, but I'm happy to have you here. What's going on? So yeah, that ends up being like the question. So I would love for people to write into the comment section, how often are you checking prices away from the major chains? How often do you actually go look at something like hotels.com to see what is available in the area as compared to just trying to redeem points or stay with the major chains because you're trying to reach status or whatever the heck it is? Because some of the different things is like, okay, you may end up getting free breakfast. Well, what kind of free breakfast are you really getting? Sure, with Hyatt, sometimes end up being like better, but if you go stay with a Hilton, then sometimes it's just pretty, at least in the US, well, I guess now you only get the credit, but it can end up being pretty basic. So it ends up questioning what is the reason of the loyalty outside of that's what we're told here in the points miles game. And as I look at other properties like around the world in places that aren't really expensive, then this question keeps on kind of coming back into my head. So I don't think this works everywhere, but I do think that it works in some instances. So if you are redeeming points, I got right here. If you are redeeming points in major cities, then I do think that it ends up making, especially if you can get like a reasonable cents per point, it ends up making a lot of sense because in major cities, if you happen to be going to Los Angeles, if you happen to be, although it's pretty bad out here when it comes to hotel points, and trying to get good value for them. If you happen to go out to somewhere like London, if you happen to go to New York, redeeming points in these different places, usually when you are going to be redeeming, getting yourself a nice hotel, not only is it going to end up being a nice hotel, but the other ones surrounding around it tend to end up being pretty expensive, and the location ends up being super key. But you can the difference I'm trying to make here, like differentiating it, is going to be like you could be spending less in like a place like Bali where it like because it's not connected with some of the different names, if you still end up looking at the property, it's still going to end up having a nice pool. It's going to end up having the same like really close location. It's going to end up having many of these different things. So, and if you redeem points through a travel portal, or if you happen to have the Aeroplan card and match it with the transfer bonus, then you can end up getting yourself a really good deal and even spend less points to be able to stay at these properties. Let's see, we got a few comments in here. M2K says the plan was to use the Aeroplan card to pay myself back. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the Aeroplan card, if you take advantage of it with the transfer bonus, which already happened earlier this year, maybe they'll do another one, but they seem to be doing one a year. If you take advantage of it with the transfer bonus, you end up earning. You're going to end up getting like 1.6 plus percent, like as a transfer, like as a redemption value. So, or 1.62 cents per point, something like right around there. Maybe it's 1.65, but it ends up being better than using the Chase Sapphire Reserve through the travel portal. And then on top of that, when you end up using that card, if you use it at a place that's like a hotel, you're going to end up being able to also get your status be honored, and you can also end up earning points at that place because it comes out as being a cash booking at those locations. Whereas if you use either the Chase Sapphire Preferred or Reserved and you go through the travel portal with a hotel, then it doesn't end up counting usually for any type of like hotel status. You can end up getting it with Fine Hotels and Resorts, so you can get a like go tour status with that, but you don't end up getting it when you go through something like the Chase Sapphire Reserve. Let's see, we got Chad over here. Chad said, I use outside sources as a contingency for my points bookings. Should there be an unforeseen circumstance in a far away land, I like to know my options within striking distance of where I prefer to stay. Okay, cool. Yeah. Actually, hey, what's up? We got Dougras in here, and Dougras says 1.625. Okay, yeah. I feel like I was mixing up some of the numbers, but you got it correct. Yes. So not only is the Aeroplan card 1.625, but also with the 1.625, if you happen to be staying at places for hotels, they're going to honor it because it comes off as a cash booking because you were using the card to make the stay. So yes, Aeroplan. For Japan, I looked at bookings, booking while booking. Oh, you looked at bookings.com while booking? Yeah, so that ends up being great. So checking out to see either booking.com or hotels.com is something that I don't think that as many people in the points and miles game are doing when it comes to the different properties. I think people do end up doing it when it comes to flights, maybe not in every instance, but I do think that when it comes to hotels, I'm starting to see it to where I'm going, okay, if I happen to travel to some of these different destinations that I'm looking at, so as I said here, like where I have it. So as I said here, like big cities, sure. But if you happen to be traveling to cheaper countries or cities, happen to be going to like Vietnam, Thailand, Prague, Santiago, Chile, why are we not using a travel portal or the Aeroplan card and moving away from the major chains? So this is something that I'm looking at, and I'm starting to go, I could go stay at the Hilton in Hanoi, where, yeah, it's going to end up being, I think, like $120 where it ended up costing for Hilton, or like 20,000 Hilton points, somewhere right around there. But then there's like just as good, if not maybe even better hotels that are like $80, And then, so I'm just kind of like, okay, well, in Hanoi, Vietnam, you can go stay at a hotel for $80. That isn't bad. I mean, $80 is actually going to get you like a decently good hotel over there. So these chains in some of these places that some of us may like to travel to might not be the best for us if we're trying to redeem points over there when you start to look at the other hotels around. Yeah, I would love to have people, keep on chiming in with this. Let's see. So, yeah, Chad here. Chad says, I remember you taking my suggestion for the Palazzo Manfredi, and I have another for you. Okay, in Doha. Yeah, I could check that one out. I think I saw you posted it on Instagram. I know you posted, I can't remember. Somehow I saw something about that hotel. But yeah, it looked pretty nice. If it's the one that I saw, maybe I was seeing the one in Egypt that I was thinking about. But cool. Okay. Yeah, I do know that. I think that ends up being what is it in the I think it's also part of like Fine Hotels and Resorts. I think I was looking at that thing if I ever passed through there. Okay, we got hey JP. Oh, what's going on? How you doing? Just subbed and enjoyed your content. Keep it up. South Texas represent. Oh, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, your boy Rob. I appreciate that very, very much. Thank you. Yeah, Chad. I'll check out that hotel. I don't know exactly when I'll be heading over to Doha, but if I do, and if I happen to be staying over there for some time, then I will check that one out. Welcome. Thank you for subbing. I appreciate that, your boy Rob. Yeah, I've been trying to come out with new content, and I've been trying to up I even said this in my last live, trying to make my content look a little bit better, working on the thumbnails and the video quality and all of that, and just trying to make it more entertaining. And hopefully people have enjoyed the content, how it's been coming out. It does take more work, but I feel prouder when I release it. So I'm going to keep on doing that moving forward. Yeah, might not be as frequent as previously, but hopefully the quality ends up being more to people's liking. Favorite score or non-chain places you stayed at? So here's the thing is I've been staying mainly, especially since in the points and miles game, at properties that have been, at least the nicer ones, that have been with within the one of the big major chains. So I do have like the thing I was going to say was like I have done both in bigger cities, such as like me going over to Nashville. So when I went over to Nashville, Dougras, I stayed at a Delta. The Delta credit card has like a Delta Hotels thing where you can stay at one. So I had $150 hotel credit. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna stay at a property over here. It ends up being under $150. I'm drawing a blank right. I should have written it down. I'm drawing a blank right now on the property, but I stay at that property, and that property in Nashville I was like, okay, I definitely see the difference between this and something that ends up being like a better property, because then I end up going to the Dreams Hotel, which is part of Hyatt later on. And yeah, everything was just so much more upscale as compared to that. So I do think that like when I look at hotels, that from the low end to the mid-tier ones, there can end up being a massive jump. But when you end up going from the mid-tier to the higher end, then it tends to not be as huge of a jump. Like, I think I actually I'll get to that a little later on, but I've stayed at some properties to where sometimes even the mid-tier ones I enjoy better, but that one in Nashville that I stayed at, the Delta Hotels credit that I used, I remember being like, oh, they offer free breakfast. You go downstairs, they had like a little thing of yogurt that they gave you and like a bagel, and that was it. It was like, yeah. And like the machine to even like toast the bagel didn't really work very well. And I remember being like, okay, well, there was kids running around everywhere. I remember I was in the elevator with these kids. They were asking me where the pool was. And there wasn't even a pool at the hotel. I mean, it kind of reminded me of like hotels that I would stay at when I was a kid, and just, I don't know. It was a cheap one that people were able to just get over to. And I was figuring, all right, let me use this, not have to, pay money for the first night that ended up being in Nashville. I flew in, I landed at night. So it was just somewhere just to pretty much be able to sleep and eat breakfast. And then the next day I went over and was able to move over to the Dreams Hotel. But yeah, so I don't really have an answer for you there when it comes to like the obscure ones. It's a Hilton property and it's next level. Okay, cool. I'll check that one out, Chad, for sure. Or at least I'll look it up to see. I feel like I have looked it up. I'll make sure to see it, to keep it in my mind for maybe when if I happen to be going through Doha. 14 on board, only 4. Oh yeah, Dougras is right. Let's hit that like button. Thank you, Dougras. Thank you. Have I flown economy on Japan Airlines? I have, and it's actually been the best economy flight of my life. If you actually go onto my channel, my most watched video is my economy and first class video with Japan Airlines, and that one shows my experience on Japan Airlines in economy, and it was good. It was really, I mean, I was fortunate that there actually was no one sitting in the middle, so that obviously makes it nice. But when I went over to Japan, I had points to be able to redeem, and I was like, okay, well, I booked the first class coming back, and then I was like, you know what, I think maybe it might even be interesting if I did economy there. Even though I saw like availability for first class, but I was like, let me just do economy there. And also, I'm just at the time, I was just like, let me save some points too, because it was like Alaska miles, which was like hard, at the time a lot harder to come by. Now I have quite a few Alaska miles, but yeah, my Japan Airlines economy flight, I was like, I would do this every time to fly over to Japan. It's a great experience. So, I mean, yeah, like if you have anything that ends up being like how my Japan Airlines first class economy experience was, then you'll go, sure, yeah, it's tight, but the food was good, the service was incredible, and it was like predominantly Japanese people on the plane. Which what I mean by that is like people, like no one was reclining, no one was doing everything, everyone was like really quiet, everything was just seemed very organized, and yeah, so it was just like to start that way off to get over to Japan and then have that be like just the way to begin my trip was just fantastic. So, um, but I actually got another comment here. Let's see. Am I in SoCal? Yes, I am in SoCal. I don't remember. Sorry, I'm going to be in the. No, I'm not in the Bay Area. Yeah, I'm in SoCal. We had the fires here. Was it like 3 weeks ago now? Which are pretty much done now, thanks to the. Well, we just had rain like the last couple of nights, which is good. But yeah, SoCal right now, and somehow I'm still a little chilly. We got another person here, Franklin F. JP, appreciate the tip on Alaskan Airlines. Oh, thank you. Yes. Hopefully more people will end up taking advantage of that. Because the whole thing was that I seen how many people love to do mainly domestic economy travel or even just domestic in general. Some people may even want to do like Comfort Plus, or some people might want to do the domestic first class. So I was trying to think of a video where this can end up working out for people that do more domestic that isn't difficult. And because a lot of the times when we say, oh, just you can go ahead and book, Aeroplan and to be able to book United or do Air Canada, not Air Canada, sorry, or do Avianca. And there's all these different things you can end up doing. But as you end up trying to do them, first of all, United ends up releasing significantly less award availability as compared to what American Airlines has been releasing for Alaska. So, and then also with that, so many people have American Express membership reward points who just have no idea how to get any type of value from them. So because of this backdoor that's right now working where you can get them over to your Alaska account, if most people who are just domestic travelers just transfer them over to Alaska, you're probably going to end up doing okay unless you just end up not being near a place that flies with American Airlines. But American Airlines, I think actually I just read that United just beat out American when it comes to like most planes or most seats. I can't remember which one it was, but American Airlines is like what is it, one of the biggest airlines in the entire world. So it flies to so many different places. So if you can take advantage of American Airlines, which I think most people can, then if you have Alaskan Airlines miles, especially if you're flying like under the 1,400 mile range, then you're going to be getting good value from those miles. You're probably like, if the flight ends up being $75, then you're getting 1 cent per point. It's not the greatest, but the flight ends up being more than that. I guess it needs to be like a decent amount more so you don't end up because you would be earning points. But say the flight ends up being over $100, you're winning. So if you find flights that are $100 and you use Alaskan Airlines miles on them for an economy that's under 1,400 miles, you pretty much end up winning right there. So I think that for a lot of people that end up being really helpful. So yeah, I hope more people end up taking advantage of it because it is a great way to fly domestically. I've done it. I've flown numerous times with Alaska, redeeming Alaskan Airlines miles for American flights. And the thing about it is that people used to do it with British Airways. People used to do it with Qatar, which you can still do. And if you take advantage of the transfer bonus, it kind of equals out. So if there wasn't an easy way to transfer over to Alaska, then I would say you could do that. But trying to find award availability with those programs is a pain in the butt. Like their websites aren't as easy and smooth as something like Alaskan Airlines, where you can just get an award chart, where you can end up quick. Like all the U.S. airlines, when it comes to navigating on their sites, they are smooth and easy. I don't know who's the hardest. Maybe Delta, maybe, but even like they're not that hard as compared to Turkish Airlines or Avianca or some of these other ones that will just drive you mad. So I'm happy to hear that. I know I just kind of rambled on about that for a little bit, but I'm happy that people can redeem for just domestic travel and actually have a good value for it. This chat already asked this earlier. When do you think Amex to Hawaiian to Alaska indirect route will end? Would you suggest a speculative transfer before it closes? I have done a lot of speculative transfer to it. I'm pretty much like just emptying. The thing that's kind of annoyed me is that I did it in the beginning. Like I did a bunch of American Express points, and then I gained some more points, and now I got to pay that stupid tax again because I don't want to keep paying that tax because it does add up if you do a decent amount. I mean, even just still, it's $100. I mean, even if it's $50 or whatever it is, I still want to pay it. But I think it was like Greg, the frequent miler, did 800,000 points back when there's a transfer bonus. I'm not saying to go that hard, but you with the family, this is like one of the few programs I would say, yes, speculatively transfer. Like they told the Department of Transportation that they weren't going to do devaluations to their program. They just released their award chart last year. The only fear that I have, really, like the biggest fear, is not even really devaluation. It's that American might start limiting how much award availability that it gives to Alaska. Then that would end up being a challenge. That would end up being a challenge for people who are just mainly looking for domestic flights. You still would have the availability to get over to Europe with Condor, or Condor or Starlux to get over to Taipei, or just over to maybe Southeast Asia, or wherever it is you want to go over in Asia. So you still would have options and different ways you could redeem Alaska miles. But if you're trying to find just cheap domestic, then if Americans start seeing that just so many people are redeeming that way, and they decide to make that become more expensive, and then or just reduce their availability, that would really stink. But that's really my main fear. When do I think it's going to end? I have no idea. I think that there's my guess is that there's a contract specifically with Hawaiian and American Express, and that contract's probably multiple years. But it's probably like if there's a merger to where the name will change or something. I don't know exactly how the contract works, but something in the contract is keeping it that way. And I honestly think that Alaskan Airlines is losing money on it because we're pretty much buying Hawaiian Airlines miles and then reselling them for Alaskan Airlines miles. And Alaskan Airlines miles are more valuable just in general. I mean, if you just look to buy either one of them, you see one of them selling them for more. So because of that, Alaska must be losing money. I don't know how many people are actually doing this. I know that we in the community are doing it. I know that people have been talking about it, but as a whole, my guess is that it's probably not like a ridiculous amount. But I will say that when it comes to like Alaskan Airlines miles, I got a few Alaska cards before, and I remember being like, oh my goodness, it's so hard to earn the rest of these. And I remember being a little bit annoyed by the change to the award calendar, because I was like, these miles are so hard to come by. I'd rather just get Avios, which I can earn quicker, and then do a transfer bonus and then just redeem the stuff. But now that I can get Alaska miles at a 1-to-1, then I'm like, I'm just gonna do this all day. I'll get 700,000. I mean, Alaska miles if I can, as long as it gets to stay like this for a while. Oh, cool. M2K is going to Japan in October. Booked economy on JL for the wife and him. On the way there, San Fran, Haneda, and on the way back from Osaka to Kauai. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think that you're going to have a great experience even in economy. And then flight from SFO to there, what is that? Like I think it's not even 10 hours. So at least it's not going to be like a 14 or something like that hour flight. I don't know what time it takes off from San Fran. But as a whole, yeah, can end up being, I still think you're going to like it. I think that when it came to the food, like I dog on United a lot, but it ends up being a lot of times because man, their food. I've flown with them internationally, I've flown with them domestically, and I've gotten food from them, and I've done it in economy, and I remember just being like, oh my goodness, this thing is horrible. Whereas with Japan Airlines, I got it just tasted so good. It tasted so good. It tastes better than what United gave me in business class. So yeah, you say you're staying at the Intercontinental in Tokyo, Hyatt Place in Kyoto, Caption in Osaka, Grand Hyatt in Kauai. Awesome. That is really cool. So I know that the the Caption in Osaka is like really cheap when it comes to points, only 5,000 points, which ends up being, well, actually, I don't know when you got it, but it ends up being, I'm pretty sure category 1 still, which is really good. So yeah, that is awesome. And then I don't stayed at these other properties. I think I've looked up the Intercontinental. But that's awesome. I don't know if you've been there before. If you haven't, it is just so much fun. You're going to have a blast while you're out there. I absolutely love it. I love Tokyo, and I hope that I can go there at least one time a year for the rest of my life. Yeah, it's great. I've been there in the winter. I've been there in the spring. I've been there all different times of the year, and it's just, no matter when I go, I'm just like, I like it. I love it here. Wong Wei, what's going on? Welcome. How you doing? Actually, I got to go to your question. I'm going to get over there in just a second. We're just kind of saying what's up to everybody. You said, with the Ink Train ending, how do you get more UR points? So I already banked quite a bit of UR points from both the Ink Train and also methods that I'm not supposed to talk about here on YouTube. Now, if anyone goes to Points Travel 101, I talk about the different tricks I did do. I don't really do them now, but I was able to get myself a lot of UR points by being able to pretty much just 5x on the ink cards max, and then just do that for, I think, like a couple different years. So I got a lot of them. So that's the reason I was able to transfer points over to, a lot of them over to Hyatt. I was able to transfer a lot of points over to Aeroplan to be able to see if I can take, well, one, I want to fly like Lufthansa first. I did that, and also see what other deals could become with Aeroplan, but also maybe to take advantage of different hotels. But if you get yourself the Ink Cash, that's really going to end up being a great way to do it. If you are 48 months after getting the Sapphire Preferred or the Sapphire Reserved, you can get another bonus there if you're just looking for bonuses. But the Ink Cash is really where I would say that I can get a decent amount of UR points, but I haven't really been as worried. I mean, I'm starting to get like a little lower on UR points now, where I'm like, okay, I'm probably going to be, maybe, I don't know if I'm even going to be out of them by the end of this year. But I am going to be lower this year. So I've just been mainly kind of focusing on membership reward points. And then obviously if you say you and the wife get her, do a referral, you can end up getting 20,000 points right there to refer her. The Chase does have not a travel portal, does have a shopping portal. It doesn't tend to be very great. Although I have noticed that there's different points values depending on the different card you end up using through the shopping portal. So if you go under like your Freedom Unlimited versus your Freedom Flex, and you go look at the same exact thing, the Freedom Flex may end up having a higher percentage it's going to give you back as compared to the Freedom, or maybe the Freedom Unlimited will have a higher percentage as compared to the Freedom Flex. So that's something to check out. But yeah. Okay, so we got a few other people writing down here. People saying what's up to Wong Wei. Let's see. It's your first. Okay, it'll be your first time in Japan. Awesome. You just eat. Just that's all you need to do. Just go there, eat. Just walk in. You don't need to walk in any type of chain. I mean, you can go to the different chains, but just walk into a place, and then usually you can put the money into the machine. And then you just pick up the thing you want. You get a little ticket. You go over to the guy. You give it to him. You just eat. You don't even need to be able to. He doesn't even need to be able to speak English. You're just gonna have incredible sushi, ramen, whatever it is that you decide to order. It's fantastic. Love it over there. Okay, so I'm gonna go back over here to some of the things I was talking about for the topic. So kind of like really where I'm getting at this is end up being. So when it comes to the chains, is that, are we paying more points for a Nike shirt just for the Nike logo? And if anyone ever watches the TV show Atlanta, there's an episode in there. It's like the FUBU episode, to where one person's got the real FUBU shirt and another person's got the fake FUBU shirt. And then when they go to school, they realize there's a little difference between them, and they want to figure out who has the fake one. anyone who was younger when FUBU was big knows how important that was, where you wanted to wear FUBU, but you also didn't want other people to know you had the bootleg. But really what I mean by that is, are we paying for the logo? Are we paying more in points to make sure we can get, say that we stayed at a Alila in Bali, or we stayed at these different places when there are really nice places around. I've just been looking, and there was kind of like I can probably say, I'm not even going to, because I always say that if something's good, I tell people. If something's too good to be true, I usually just keep my mouth shut. But there was something happened, and I was able to get a bunch of Hotel.com dollars. And with that, it's made me look more on Hotel.com to see kind of what's out there. And then this is kind of just what's been making me look at just other hotels as well, along with the other things I said just at the start of this video. And I've just been seeing like, wow, there's some really nice properties that aren't connected with these brands that are decent amount cheaper and very close when it comes to location. Like in Hong Kong, okay, here's the Hyatt property right here. Here's another property that's connected, that's a block away from it, that ends up being $150 cheaper, that is not connected with Hyatt or any of these different things, but it's the rooms, everything looks just as good. So do I need to redeem my Hyatt points there, or could I end up just using the travel portal? So let's see. So, and one of the things I wanted to say here was like, listen, there's been times where I've stayed at these really nice properties and I've been like, yeah, this deserves to be considered, being the top property out there. But just because the name is the top property doesn't mean this ends up being so much better, because we think of it just as Hyatt has to be great or a Conrad has to be great. But I was in Japan and I stayed at both the Conrad and the Hilton property. So it was the Hilton Tokyo and the Conrad Tokyo. And the Conrad Tokyo, in my opinion, was not as good as the Hilton Tokyo. If I was to go back, not only did I pay less points, but I enjoyed my experience, my room, the hotel, the breakfast, more at the Hilton than I did at the Conrad. And this is just one of those things to where, like, you see that things should be, like, this is where I mean, like, people will say that things need to be the top thing. And sometimes people will say, oh, it's a Conrad, it's got to be great. I will say that consistently, the Conrads are going to be good as compared to, I've stayed at Hiltons where I'm like, this isn't the greatest. But like the Hilton in Munich that I stayed at, because I just needed I stayed there for like one night really quick, and the toilet was broken. There was all these different things going on that was not consistent. So I guess you could think of that as the consistency of being good is what you end up getting with the name. But when it comes to properties, if someone was asking me which Hilton property should I stay at in Tokyo, I would say the Hilton Tokyo over the Conrad Tokyo anytime. It's yeah. But so I think now I get to some of the different questions. So I'm going to go over to, how do I do this? Sorry, I haven't been on here for a little bit. So right here is my community page. This is me out in Bali. It's funny because in this photo, I look like I'm so happy at this place. I'm having a great time. But the reality is, for anyone who was on the last live, I got horrible food poisoning right before I got here. So I actually had a terrible stay. I didn't even get to really enjoy it. That's the funny part of the internet. I'll be honest with people, as compared a lot of times on the internet, people just post things and go, look how great it is. But I've told everyone, like, to be honest, it was actually more rough than it looks. All right, so we come down here, and Stan the Credit Frog had a question. So he says, if you are someone who books and cancels flights frequently, is there ever a scenario where booking through a portal would be better than direct? So what I have to say to that is, you ask, is there ever a scenario? I would say, like, kind of yes, but it's something that I wouldn't recommend it. And what I mean by that is, like, if you happen to have the Capital One Venture X card, if you book through their portal, and I believe it's for 10 days, someone can correct me if I'm wrong about that. But if you book through their portal, what ends up happening is they will do a price match if the price ends up dropping. So, and I think it ends up being up to $50. So it doesn't, if it drops like super amount, then it won't cover the entire thing, but it will end up, if it does drop like a little bit, then it will end up giving you some money. So because of that, you could end up getting not only the higher amount of points, getting 10x back, 5x back with Capital One's shopping portal, but then you also would end up getting the drop of the price, which does happen. Like, I have a flight where I'm going to be, I have to like reposition to go over to that wedding, that I'm international wedding. And I have it set up on Google to where it's telling me when the price is moving. And I waited till the price dropped to a certain amount that I had like a credit for, and then I end up booking it. But then I've seen that the prices dropped a little bit lower, but then it's went back up, and then it's been moving around. So if I happen to have Capital One's price match, that would have been great. Now here's the thing about Capital One: when you go through their travel portal, is not only will the prices not always consistently be the same, sometimes they will, but also I've noticed that like I think that when it comes to the ones that actually are cancelable, as compared to just like basic economy, I've seen them be like a decent. They usually end up being a decent amount more. So I think that while in theory it can end up working, it's not something that I would actually do. So hold on, sorry, that's one way's question. Where was Stan's question? I think I had it in here. Well, whatever. I'll just say it out here. So yeah, in theory it can end up working, but I do think that when in practice, I wouldn't want to use the travel portal if I am consistently canceling flights over and over and over. What had you thinking here? Sorry, I just wanted to put it on the screen because I know I put it here, but not a big deal. But anyways, I'll go back to, well, I guess it's still up here on Stan's thing or on the page, so I can just pull that down. There we go. Yeah. So I wouldn't do it if I'm someone who's be canceling. I've used Capital One's travel portal a few times just to get the travel credit. I think no, I'm trying to think if I used it for a hotel that I stayed at, but it worked out fine. I think actually I did cancel one of the flights and got reimbursed, but it was a cancelable flight that I was able to do it with. So, but it's not something I would want to consistently do because I have seen many times where the prices are not consistent to what I see on Google. Yeah, but I think Capital One Venture X is the only one where I could say, as you said, is there any way I can end up seeing it? Is there ever a scenario that this was the only scenario, but it's not something where I would say, go ahead and do it. Let's see here. So we go back here. So Wang Wei says, Caption Osaka is great as long as it's 3,500 to 5,000. Stay for one night. They give you everything: pajamas, toothbrush. Oh, wow. They give you that? Toothpaste? Okay, cool. Nice. I didn't know they give you pajamas there. That's pretty cool. I mean, a lot of the hotels, if you ask, even just because a lot of hotels you can go into and they might not have toothpaste and toothbrush in the room itself. But if you go downstairs, then they'll end up giving it to you because I guess they're just being cheap. But that's cool. They give you pajamas. I didn't know that for a 5,000 point hotel. That's really nice. Let's see here. Booked my whole year of 2025. Nice. January, you're going to Peru. Okay, business class. May, you're going to Cancun. Nice. And then Tokyo in September, business class, all on points. Fun. That is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. That's really, really cool. Yeah, I have not been to Peru. I've been to Cancun. I've been to Tokyo. That is great. I would love to know which airlines you are flying with. I mean, I'm assuming with you doing LATAM to go over to Peru, but I'd like to know with the other ones you're flying with. That's really cool. You say I buy Adidas logo on eBay, then I buy Fruit of Loom t-shirt. Yeah, there you go. Well, it's funny. I remember the first time I really had this click in my head where it was an issue, and I think I've said this in videos before, was I was in high school and I always wanted to get Air Forces, but they were like over $100 at the time. And when I wanted to get these different Air Forces, there was a discount store down the street called Build 19. I don't think it doesn't even, at least doesn't exist in my town anymore. It went out of business. And at that store, they had it to where they had a bunch of Air Forces for like $20. And I was like, oh my goodness, I got to buy them. So I had like $40 and I bought a couple different Air Forces. And I was like, yes. And I went to school the next day and someone was like, yeah, you just got those from Build 19, didn't you? And I was like, I didn't get those from there. What are you talking about? I got them from, I don't know, Foot Locker or whatever. And the person was like, well, that'd be stupid. You can get it for $20 over there. And I started going, why do I even care about what? And then at that point, I started to go like, I don't want to wear name brand stuff. So if you ever see me, you'll probably notice I mean, right now I'm wearing just like this Japanese sweatshirt, but I try to avoid name brand stuff. It doesn't mean I don't like to have like something that's comfortable. I might have something that ends up being like a nice shirt, but it just doesn't have a name brand. So it could end up still being a decent price. But I try to avoid it because I'm like, I don't want the logos to be why I'm buying things. I mean, sure, I have some Nike shoes because they feel good when I'm doing athletic things and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm all about trying to. But it's interesting that I do that when it comes to hotels. Hotels, I go, oh, I got to look at, let's see, just go down the chain. I go, okay, got to first look at Hyatt, then Hilton, and then start going down from there. Do you have any experience with Iberia business class? Yeah, I've flown them a few times. Iberia business class, I would say that their highlight ends up being the food was pretty darn good. Yeah, I actually really liked that. The product that I've seen, they do have a newer one out, but the product that I've seen is mainly like, or I've experienced is like older. You'll see it's like worn. So yeah. And then when I was flying out of Madrid, I remember their lounge being stupidly hot. I mean, the plane was stupidly hot too. But I would say for what the points cost is, it's like unbeatable. I mean, you got, was it 35,000 from the East Coast? I think it's like 42,500 from over here if you're doing off peak times. Even if you do it during peak times, if you do it during a transfer bonus, I mean, I would do that anytime. So I think Iberia business class, people might talk smack about it because it does come off as dated and when you're in there, but because of how many points you're paying, like if they're asking for like 70,000 points, I'm like, all right, maybe this is, I'm talking about from like the East Coast. All right, maybe not. But for what it's asking for, 100% is worth it. Absolutely. Any thoughts on Greece? I'm heading there at the end of March to check it out. No, I actually haven't been to Greece. I've been looking at Greece and I've been thinking about going there, but yeah, I just it's something that I haven't made it over to yet. So I can't really, anyone else can chime in on that, but I can't really say that I know about Greece other than just kind of what I've seen on the internet. Looking to head to Istanbul in September. Recommendations for Istanbul, considering Hyatt and Hilton. Good location. Do you stay? And no, so I didn't stay there when I just went to Istanbul when I was in Turkey. It's called Turkey now, apparently. But one thing that I was actually looking at, because I was thinking about going back to Istanbul, is that if you happen to have Marriott points, there's a Ritz-Carlton in Istanbul that's not very expensive. I'm talking about like I think it's under 50,000 points, because I was looking at the redeeming it, like the 50,000 point certificates I had. And I was like, well, if I went back over to Europe, what do I think about going back over to Istanbul? So I would look at that Ritz-Carlton if you happen to have Marriott points and you're trying to find a place to burn them. Because I think that property actually looks pretty good, especially if you go like during it looks right over the Bosporus. So yeah, I stayed at the Park Hyatt out there, and I also stayed at the Grand Hyatt. The Park Hyatt was cool. Yeah, it's like the Salt Bay. I forget what the guy's name is, but it's his hotel, and yeah, it's like you can walk from there over to. I think you can. I'm trying to. It's been some years since I've been there. I think you can walk from there over to like where the boats are to cross the Bosporus. Yeah, I mean, I really liked it out there. It's some place that I need to return to. And just like the food and everything is so cheap. When I just think of like, when I compare it to other places that I've been to in Europe, like if you go there, then you go over to London. Like I enjoyed my time in London, but I spent a fortune in London as compared to Istanbul. Like it's hard to to spend a lot. I mean, it's been years, so maybe it's changed a little bit, but it's hard to spend a lot in Istanbul because it's just, the food is really affordable. Yeah, it kind of felt like some of the places in Southeast Asia that I've been when it comes to just like the cost of a lot of different things. But the public transportation is better, taking like the ferry and stuff like that. So I will say that I enjoyed the Park Hyatt. So I'm not going to knock it, but it actually has moved up 2 categories. So I wouldn't even stay there now because I think it's like 20,000 points at least a night to stay there. So yeah, I'm trying to remember. Is it category? I think it's actually a category 6. So I think it's 25,000 points now to stay there, which is just too many points to stay at that property. When I stayed there, it was like, I think I used free night award certificates. So everything's kind of changed. But I haven't looked at the Hilton ones. I don't know what Hilton properties out there, but I do know that that I have looked at the Ritz-Carlton, which looked really cool and was in a great location. And then I also looked at and also stayed at the Hyatts over there. The Hyatts are good, but the Hyatts are just, their properties went up in category, and mathematically it's probably going to make more sense just to use cash. Let's see, Peru trip, AA, okay, via Hawaiian, via Alaska, okay, and then doing Lima, Tom, Cancun, multiple airlines, and they had to reposition Sun, and then Tokyo, going Eva Air. Cool. Okay, so you got to stop in Taipei. That's cool. Nice. Alrighty, so we come back over here to some of these questions, and we have Luke's Points and Miles. And Luke asked, which issuer do you see as having the best travel portal for hotels? So if we're just looking at the travel portals, then Chase, from what I've seen, is best with the travel portal. However, so the Chase Sapphire Reserved, because I've seen in times when I'm looking through with American Express and the prices are just they're not matching up. Chase actually does a really good job of matching up with the hotels. However, I would say moving away from the Chase Sapphire Reserved, just like I talked about earlier in the video, I would rather go with something like the Aeroplan card instead and time out that transfer bonus to be able to get yourself was it 30% if you end up having the card. So you can end up, and they put a cap on it earlier this year, but pretty much you can end up getting $2,600 in points in redemption value for 200,000 points. And you would end up having to transfer over, what was the math of that? I think it's like somewhere near like 160,000. If you did a 30% transfer bonus, somewhere near like 160,000 points, you get yourself $2,600 in hotel travel. So at that rate, that actually ends up being, in my opinion, the best. That's the way I would go with it if I wanted to try to stay at different hotels. And that's the way I've been looking at it with transferring over my points to Aeroplan. I still am looking to fly with Aeroplan because they end up being great deals. But there's just times where I'm seeing, hey, I want to go to places and I don't really, and I don't want to have to be paying cash out of pocket. I want to be able to get the best value I can. And that's where I end up seeing using something like the Aeroplan card is going to end up being the best. It is unfortunate that they did that cap, but I feel like they're probably doing it because people were transferring points from all different programs. Because I've transferred points to Aeroplan from like American Express. I've done it from all different programs. So I guess unless you were going super hard with it, they wouldn't really care. But I think that they end up going, okay, you know what? We're just going to put a cap on it so that we don't have to worry about people doing it from these other different places and then having it being an issue. So yeah, that's what I would say to go with. If you wanted to, let me come back here. If you wanted to get the best deal when it comes to the travel portal, I would get the Aeroplan card and then take advantage of the transfer bonus. And then remember, when you do that, so not only are you going to be getting 1.625 back, you're also going to be earning points at the property. And after you add in and you factor in the earning points, if you happen to have Hilton Diamond status or something like that, you're probably getting near about 2 cents per point, including the rebate. So it doesn't end up being a bad deal when you look at something like you want to, the whole point of trying to get to 2 cents per point is because, at least this is what I've come to the conclusion to, is because obviously 1 cent per point ends up being the cash out. And then 1.5 cents per point ends up being going through the travel portal. So you want to be able to beat the travel portal. And then you also want to be able to beat going through the travel portal. And then the points you earn from, at least from airlines, you would earn from also going through the travel portal. And mathematically, it probably comes, I haven't done it for all the different airlines. You're going to get different points for different airlines and different level of status, but it's probably near about 2 cents per point. So if you can end up exceeding 2 cents per point, well, then you end up beating the other options that are out there. So with something like the Aeroplan card, if you end up using that to earn 1.625 back, and then also you can earn points back, especially with hotels. And if you have diamond status with Hilton, and I know you like to stay at Hilton, Luke, then you'd be able to get back a really good value for, and then just earn more Hilton points for your Hilton stays. Obviously, you have to factor in the $95 annual fee, but if you use it to, I don't know exactly what the degree is mathematically, but I think if you redeem, I forget exactly what the number is, but if you redeem a certain amount of points going through the travel portal, doing the pay yourself back with that card, then it's going to end up mathematically making sense. Okay, so we're going to come back here. We're going to look at Wang Wei. You got your question over here. You say, is there a scenario for travel points where you would book an upper class flight in the travel portal instead of transferring partners? There are examples that I can give you of where that actually ended up making sense. Now, there's not a ton. If you were someone who happens to be traveling over the ocean, it's rare that that's ever going to be the instance, because over the ocean flights, and this is the reason why it is recommended to redeem your points to go over. Actually, I think I have your thing here. Bam, put it up on the screen as well. it's going to make more sense to be able to redeem your points for overseas travel is because of how expensive it is. I mean, you can find sometimes where it ends up being you can do round trip for $5,000, but that's still really expensive. And then sometimes I've even seen Iberia when it ends up being like near $4,000. But there's other times where it's $7,000-8,000 unless you want to do all these different stops and all these different things. And it's like no way you want to be able to spend all that amount. And then if you end up going through the travel portal, it ends up being super expensive or a super ridiculous amount of points. So the examples I'm going to be able to give you are going to be, I just got to load it real quick because I think it's probably timed out. Is going to be for domestic travel it's still going to be upper class, but it's just going to end up being either domestic travel or shorter haul flights going from like different countries. But first I'm going to show you this one right here where it can end up making sense. So I'm just going to share this tab instead. So if you happen to be flying from, say, Boston over to Los Angeles, which I've done before since my family's all in Massachusetts, or a lot of my family's Massachusetts, and you want to be flying in business class, which I have up here, with someone like JetBlue. So if you look at JetBlue, it's end up being $684 for one way. You could end up doing this round trip, and it's going to end up just doubling in price, I'm pretty sure. But I just do it as the one way to be able to make it easier for, it's pretty much double the price, to make it easier for what I'm trying to show. Now, if you look at that and you're like, okay, well, I could spend that, or I could try to redeem JetBlue points. So if you go redeem JetBlue points, it's going to end up costing you 54,100 JetBlue points. Now, if you were to, so you are going to be getting more than 1 cent a point for your JetBlue points. And if you end up having the JetBlue card, you'd also get like a 10% rebate. So it ended up being near about 4,900 points. However, if you happen to have a travel portal, such as like the Chase travel portal, now this is just going to be a calculator, and someone can correct me if I'm doing this wrong. But if you happen to have the Chase travel portal, this is a points transfer bonus, but I think the math should end up being the same. If I'm wrong with this, please someone tell me. But if you were to end up getting a 50% boost, it would end up being for these $684. So it would end up being 68,000 points for 68,400 points required. It would end up costing you 45,600 points to be able to book that. So it ends up being less than what it would cost to do it with JetBlue to redeem for the JetBlue flight. And on top of that, you also would be able to earn points with JetBlue. So with JetBlue, share this screen, you're going to be earning 3 cents per point. If you happen to have status, you end up getting even more points with it. So you would be earning points along with spending less points as well. So you'd be able to have the rebate to be able to book for a future flight. This also could end up working. So let me put this here. So if you end up finding it for a cheaper flight like this with American Airlines, you could also, with American Airlines, base value or base earned points for business class ends up being 5 miles per dollar spent. So it actually end up being, not only are you going to be earning more American Airlines miles, but American Airlines miles are more valuable than JetBlue miles. So this would end up being an example to where it could make sense if you happen to be, booking with a travel portal like the Chase Sapphire Reserve. And you also would end up doing this with something like the American Express Business Platinum card, where I believe that the percentage after you end up doing the 35% rebate is even better than the Chase travel portal. Obviously, that card has a higher annual fee, and I think maybe not as good for everyone to have. But even still, just with something like the Chase Sapphire Reserve, it can end up working. And both of them, you'd be getting a rebate, or just you would have to spend less points. You'd be earning points, and it would cost less. So that is the example I end up giving. And also, if you look at traveling from countries that are not too far away from each other, like I was looking at flying from Taipei to Hong Kong, and when I was looking at doing it in business class, the amount of points that it was going to cost, I remember just going, well, I might as well just use my Aeroplan card to do this because I would be able to earn some EVA Air miles if I want to do it in business class. But then I just was like, this is such a short flight. I'm just going to do it in economy. And I just end up doing it in economy, and that was just the way I went about it. But I've noticed that if you're doing shorter distance flights, sometimes it can end up being really expensive for one of the flights, but other times it may not end up being, when I say shorter distance, I'm talking about like probably under 4 hours, like closer to 3 hours or near 4 hours. But when you start looking at anything that's going to be over oceans, it's rare that it's going to make sense to use a travel portal. It's got to be like a mistake fare or something like that. So So where do I got here? So here it is. So I say yes. So it's going to be for domestic. Sorry, for domestic flights with something like JetBlue that isn't traveling over an ocean, or if you happen to be doing shorter flights that end up being international. Sorry, I'm gonna go back over to the chat. Hey, all right, we got some people over here. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out where I was last. Sorry. So I think when you recommended staying in different hotels, would you recommend staying in different hotels in Tokyo or stay at the same hotel for 1.5 weeks? I was planning on staying near Shinjuku area. I have 175,000 Hilton points dropping and a free stay. It all depends on how you like to travel. I typically move around because then I get to see different things and then get to be in the area where I want to see some different things. So my first time in Tokyo, I wasn't even there for that long, but I did move between the Hyatt Regency in Shinjuku and then the Park Hyatt in Shinjuku, but they weren't that far away from each other. If you were there for 1.5 weeks, if you're going to be going to, it depends on what you're going to. If you don't want to go to Osaka or any of those other places, you could stay at the same property. With Hilton, I would say, obviously, if you can, well, I guess you don't have enough points to really be able to do it with 175,000. But if you had more points, you try to stay at a property where you can get that 5th night for free. But I move around. I think everyone's different. I'm not going to say whether or not it's good or bad, but I'm someone who tends to move around. Like when I said earlier that I was talking about Iberia and I was in Madrid, but I also went to Barcelona. There's been some times where I stay in a place for a little bit longer. But I don't think I've ever stayed in a place for like a couple of weeks. It doesn't mean that I haven't traveled for a couple of weeks time, but I'm always, I don't have an issue with it. That's just not my travel style. But you could take advantage of 5th night free and then be able to save yourself even more in points and get 2 nights free with Hilton properties out there. So it could make a lot of sense for you. You also ask, I was also thinking about buying points at Choice and staying at a $200 hotel for 8,000 points, which is a pretty good deal. I just need a place to drop my bags. Yeah, that is a really good deal. It's a great deal. Okay, we got here a super chat from QC Man. Thank you so much. Have I traveled to the Caribbean? I have not. I have not been over there yet, but I do need to get over there. I need to get over to Anguilla. Anguilla is where I need to go. That is where my grandma's side of the family is from. She talked about it ever since I was very young, and none of my siblings have been over there. And yeah, I've seen some other people go over there, and I've just been like, why haven't I been there? Why haven't I been there? I just haven't really figured out. I'm trying to get it coordinated to where me and my brothers can go at the same time, but it's really hard. As you get older, it's impossible. I mean, it's hard almost at any time, but as people get families, it becomes really challenging to try to coordinate it. But I'm really hoping that Anguilla ends up being one that I can get over to. What's going on, Cesar? Or Caesar, welcome. So we have Wong Wei talking over here saying, I would Tokyo. I've stayed at Hyatt properties. So yeah, those are all those different Hyatt properties, Shibuya House, and even Choice in Roppongi. Okay. Yeah. He also says here, hotel for Choice, good location, and only around 8,000 to 10,000 points. Nice. That's really good. Let's see here. I stayed right near the metro. Yeah. I mean, the good thing about Tokyo too is you're never really that far away from the metro. I've noticed that almost anywhere I want to go, I could get off on the metro and then it would be like a 10-minute walk to like anywhere. That's like so convenient. It's so nice to be able to do that. So nice. Oh, hey, we got another super chat from QC Man. Thank you so much. Favorite program to buy points, hotel or airline? So favorite program to buy points when it comes to hotel would end up being Hilton for sure. Like I've just seen so many good deals to be able to do it with Hilton. When it comes to buying points for airlines, I'm one of the few people who I would say it's not that I don't think it makes sense. It mathematically does make sense. However, I wouldn't buy points with airlines, even though I've done it before. But now I'm holding to my guns. I wouldn't buy points with airlines until I've exhausted my transferable currencies. Because the deal when you are transferring, if you can get a transfer bonus with the programs, then that ends up being typically better than what it end up being if you look at the cash cost to buy the points, because you're pretty much going to always be buying points over a penny a piece. If you think about what your points may technically be as being a penny, I know we can all get more value than it, but if we think of it as penny points, if you can get a transfer bonus of 30%, then it's almost like you're buying these points at like 0.77 cents per point. So if you were buying airline miles that end up being 1.3 or 1.4, it's almost like you're paying double if you buy them that way as compared to if you transfer the points over to the programs. But if I have no points, then that's where it starts to make sense. Avianca has just stupidly cheap miles all the time. They end up going for like 1.2 or something like right around there. So I would say, Avianca is the way that I would go if I'm going to be buying miles. The next one would end up being, there's been some times where airplanes had it near like 1.3. I've purchased Alaska miles before. And yeah, but now I wouldn't say to do it because there's just so many ways to get them. So hotel points, number one is going to end up being Hilton. Number two is going to end up being, this is all going to be when they're all on a bonus. So don't get any of them when they're not on a bonus because it ends up being stupidly expensive. But hotel points when it's at Hilton at half a cent, and then IHG points when it's at a half a cent as well. Those ones right there, if you end up going with them, then I think that they can end up being good deals for, because you can, it's not even for like the top properties. Some people will mainly look at it like that, but sometimes you'll end up seeing properties that will be, 50,000 points that are nice and it would cost maybe $400 or $500. But then if you like it, right now I'm thinking of some small luxury hotels properties. It's not really as much when it comes to specifically Hilton. Then you start looking more at the higher end. But if you can add in that fifth night free, it really does help. The fifth night free really can end up making Hilton points become so great. Oh, we got another super chat here. Thank you. What's going on? I haven't seen you in a while. I guess I haven't done a live in a while. Tyler and Lynn, how you doing? I forget which trip you told me you were going to be taking since the last time we talked. But I apologize about that. But I know you were traveling to somewhere last time I did a live, or you were about to travel to somewhere. Where was that last time? Yeah, I don't know. But it's good to see you here. Really, really good to see you here. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Let's see. Use the travel portal to book Sacramento to San Diego and covered the costs with Aeroplan. There you go. Yep. Nice. Fun says QC Man, Alaska or Hawaiian Airlines to buy points. Yeah, that's like the one where I would have previously, but now that you have the backdoor with American Express, now that you have the Hawaiian card you can get. So there's pretty much right now 4 cards you can get to get Alaska miles. One of them you just got to do the minimum spend is just a quick purchase if you find that link. And I think it's 70,000 points for just like a single purchase. So that ends up being great. And then there's the business card and there's the personal card. So having those 4 cards and it being like a backdoor transfer right now, I don't think it makes sense to buy any Hawaiian miles unless you just are at a place to where Barclays and Bank of America won't accept you and you have no American Express points. Then at that instance, I would say sure. But until you've went to the other options, I would say hold off on buying points. At least those points. Hotels, I think it makes more sense. Alrighty, let's see. Okay, I think I skipped past some of the stuff, so I'm going to try to come back up over here. Choices of 40% boost now. I think it would be smart for me to I would have to look at the math. I don't know if I really looked at the math of buying choice hotel points. All the points I need. Okay, so yeah. If you've already done the math and you see that about $45 after the points for $200 stay, sure, yeah. And that's kind of like what I'm talking about when you're looking at playing Bangkok in January. Okay, I think it may. I think I may want to save my Hilton points and my Hilton. I'm assuming you meant Hilton points. My Hilton points for stay for that time. Okay, cool. January 2026. Well, enjoy your time out in Bangkok. And that's one of those places where I'm kind of talking about on my for the theme of this video is really, yes, redeem your points if you can see the places you really want to stay. However, at the same time, maybe look at other properties around there and see if something like the travel portal with the Chase Sapphire Reserved or the Aeroplan card maybe even the Chase Sapphire Preferred, see if you see other properties that are around that you can end up redeeming less points to be able to stay at these properties, although they're not connected to chains, because it can end up making sense. And there's, I think the last couple of things here we have is, so some people talk about different scenarios where it makes sense to them. Like DC Consulting says, yes, I pay for some flights through the Chase portal, which gives me a 25% dollar boost in order to maintain my Alaska Gold 100K status, which gives me a 150% mileage boost. In instances like that, if you have status, you can know you can get all these additional miles with a, usually rare mileage program like Alaska. This ends up being great. So that's another example Wong Wei that kind of was going on, but this is a real life example from DC Consulting. And then now we have the final question here is, how about this scenario, using the travel portal for airlines, because you can accumulate more reward points for the same spend than you can with an official transfer partner. Example, using Amex Travel to fly United, because I can make far more membership reward points than UR points organically. P.S. I know about transferring to Aeroplan or Avianca to book, but I'm unable to be that flexible. So if you're unable to be flexible, I wouldn't say to necessarily do that specifically to try to earn points with United. I guess you could, but I would more look for the better deal and then redeem my Amex points for the best deal that I can. But if you were like, okay, cool, I want to try to get myself American Airlines miles, and I'm going to end up being loyal to them, and I'm going to try to get myself the status with them, and I fly a lot, and I can redeem my membership reward points through it. I see what you're saying here. And obviously, if you're someone who flies with United, as I said earlier, the good thing that American Airlines is doing, that it's making Alaskan Airlines sweet spot with them work, is that they're opening up a ton of availability, especially with certain places. Like I've seen from Texas to LA, there's just tons of availability to fly with redeeming Alaska miles. So if you are someone who is specifically flying United, like you're flying out of San Fran all the time, and then you just don't end up seeing the availability with Aeroplan or Avianca, or just not good deals, then it could make sense. I would recommend getting the business platinum card, at least, to get yourself a 35% bonus or rebate when you are booking with your specific airline, which can end up being United or business class. So that's what I would say. Alrighty. Now, I do want to go back here, and I wanted to say this. So it ends up being most of those points. Now, one of the things I wanted to say from my last live was, one of the reasons why it can make sense is because if you remember my last live, I didn't have the greatest time when I went over to Bali. I ended up getting sick, as I kind of said earlier. When it comes to, you see this photo, I'm looking happy, but in reality, I was hurting pretty bad right there. But one of the things that can end up making sense when you are booking with these different programs that you are accustomed to is that if something goes wrong, the chains do things to make it up to you. So although I had a bad time, it wasn't that hotel that you started at. I had a bad time at the Alila in Seminyak. I got horrible food poisoning. They told me they were going to upgrade me to upgrade me to a better room. Reality was they just didn't have a room ready for like 2 hours. So they just made me wait 2 hours, and they kind of told me they gave me a better room, but it was the same room. Maybe they can name it something different. It was the same room. So that was, and there was just other little problems, but the food poisoning was really the worst part. And when I got back, I lost like 14 pounds. When I got back, I remember I talked to, I talked to my concierge, being a Hike Globalist, and I was like, hey, I didn't have the greatest time. The person emailed me. I emailed them back immediately. They were asking like, what happened? I emailed them back immediately. And then like 2 weeks went by and they never emailed me back. And I called back out my concierge and I was like, hey, what's going on? And she was like, oh, they didn't respond. I was like, no. And then she felt bad because she didn't really follow up either. She's like, I'm going to contact the hotel. The hotel felt bad because they were like, oh, we totally, like, they just forgot about me. I was like, why am I just being treated? I'm the top status. I have a concierge. I'm supposed to be treated, I never complain. I don't ask for much. Like, it's one of the things. It's like, it's funny. Like, even when I'm flying in business and first class, like I rarely ever push that button. I don't like to push the button. I like to just be like, hey, as I see them. Because yeah, it's nice to be able to have the ability to do these things, but I only really like to ask for things if I need them. So, and I will never be like writing bad reviews, but man, I had didn't have a great time at that hotel. So after they emailed me back and they were like, we're sorry we missed your email. You did email us. So they are reimbursing me all of my points, and they're also giving me points on top of that stay. Now, will I say it was worth it as compared to what I experienced there at the property? No, the property was, it wasn't a bad property, but I wouldn't wish what I was going through for anyone out there. But I will say that they were like, hey, listen, we're going to make this up to you. So that's something where when you look into Bali, I mean, you can get food poisoning at all different places. So I could have stayed at a different hotel that was half the cost, saved points, that wasn't part of a chain. And if I got food poisoning, I may have just been like, oh, we're so sorry to hear about that. And they're not going to reimburse me anything. They're also actually reimbursing me like some of the money I spent there. I think it was just on like I can't remember. I think it was, well, I guess the food that I bought to try not to get sick. Because I was specifically eating there because I was like, I've heard this area. You just want to try to stick to your hotel. But so that's something that does end up being good. You kind of have like an insurance you feel if your stay doesn't go well with the bigger chains, that hopefully they'll make it up to you. And I've heard of other people who've stayed at Hilton properties that there's been an issue and they've been like, hey, listen, we're going to do what we can to make it up to you. So you do have like the corporate part that's going to try to do what they can to make it so that they are sure that they feel that you'll come back to their properties. Because I will say that like after that, I was like, I'm not staying in Alila anymore. It just wasn't good. And Alila was supposed to be great. So it's not like, it really was just that specific Alila's fault. Sorry, it wasn't like it's all Alila's fault. It was that specific Alila's just that I just had an issue with. But so that's something that you can get from not sticking with the chains. When you are sticking with the chains, is making sure that you do end up getting some type of reassurance that if things don't go smoothly, well, then you can contact someone at the corporate who can hopefully try to make things up. So, yeah, let me go back here to the comments, and we've got a few comments. Cool. Oh, got QC man thanking me. Japan, I went to Japan first, yeah, or it was the older product, but still good. Nice, awesome, yeah. Bangkok sounds like a blast. Okay, so thank you, sir, for the knowledge, tips, and Jensen Chad. I'm out. A wonderful week. Thank you so much, Fun, for being here. Okay, people were just talking. You said, where did I go? So this was in Bali. So I went to Bali. It's funny because I had such a good. So I went from Malaysia over. So I was in Kuala Lumpur, and then went from Kuala Lumpur over to Bali. And initially, I just was like, oh, I'm just going to stay in Kuala Lumpur. And then I just was seeing so many things on the internet about how cool Bali is and this and that and how cheap. And then I had such a good time in Kuala Lumpur. I wasn't even there I was only there for like a couple of days. And then instead of me being there for like, I was thinking about going from there to like going to see the what is it called? The beach, like like near or also in Malaysia. And I was, I'm going to go all the way to Bali because everyone talks about Bali. And then I just got sick. And then I was just getting annihilated by mosquitoes. It was just, it was a lot of different things where I was like, oh goodness, this has just been not the best of trips. Yeah. Alrighty. Thank you, Fun, for being here. I'm glad you like the info, Dugras. Yes. There you guys, Cesar here. So yeah, but I want more people to look into, because I know there's probably tons of people who were like, okay, well, I'm going to book flights and I want to use points, but at the same time, I'm going to go see what flight options are out there. Now, we obviously know, there's probably people who want to fly Spirit or okay with flying Spirit. You can do that. You could fly Frontier. But if you're like, no, I don't need to fly them, but I'm also okay with not specifically staying with Delta only. We know Delta is going to end up giving people the better experience, but there's a lot of, if you're flying, the Comfort Plus with United, it's probably not going to end up being bad, especially for like a shorter flight. So that's, I think, kind of the mindset more people should have when they're looking at booking hotels. And right now it's a little, like, the way I said it is a little bit different because that's more for like domestic flights. If we were looking at flying internationally, like if you're looking at flying with Asia Air or all these other different airlines, and you would start more looking to see where the good deals are and how do I compare that to what I am getting for points to be able to redeem. So I think that more people should look at um, look at hotels.com, look at Expedia, look at these different things specifically for. I'm not saying you necessarily have to book with them, but just with them you can have like an easier way of like mapping to see what's available as compared to just going like through Chase. After you end up finding the hotel, you put it in and then you can book it through Chase. But find the hotel with something like hotels.com and then see what is around this specific name brand place, because there's a good chance you can end up saving points and having just as good of a stay, just not staying with them. So let's see here. All right, people are saying what's up. Cool. All righty. If paying to stay at Hyatt, is it better to use the travel portal or the Hyatt card? So if you use the travel portal, you won't earn points going to stay with Hyatt. If you did it with the Aeroplan card, you would, because it ends up being a pay yourself back. And also, if you do the Hyatt portal, if you have any type of status or anything like that, it doesn't get honored. So you could do it through the travel portal, but this is kind of where I would say specifically why even try to go through Hyatt. I would look at other properties around. Yeah, so it would make the most sense to do it with the card, because if you do it with the card, you're going to get 4x back with the card. You're going to get the additional points for actually staying there, so it ends up being 9x back. If you have status, it ends up being additional points on top of that, over 10x back. And then you would be able to earn elite nights. You'd be able to do all of that. So it's going to make way more sense to just avoid the portal for hotels unless you're doing through Fine Hotels and Resorts. When you book a flight through an airline alliance, do you get miles with the booking airline or the airline you're flying on? So it comes down to who you decide to credit it to. You can credit it to a different airline, and then you can end up earning miles from that. So if you do that, so like if you're booking through Alaska to fly on, I'm assuming you're talking about cash, to fly on an American flight, then you can book. What you can do is you can put in your Alaskan Airlines account to be able to get the like status and everything like that to be able to earn the miles and be able to do that. So any of like the One World partners, you'd be able to do that with like Alaskan. So there are people who do that to try to earn more points with their, but you have to make sure that it mathematically makes sense, because they could end up charging more than what they would do directly on the other airline's website. So yeah. Let's see. Hey, we got JP Buffett over here. JP, what's going on? What's going on? How you doing? Yeah, I know it's probably late for other people who are on the East Coast. So I'm going to just do it for a few more minutes here. But I just wanted to go back to one. I want to thank everyone here who's been here tonight. Hopefully this has been something that people think about more. I do think that obviously we do want to look at our points and see make sure we're getting good deals. But I also want us to start looking to see, like, if I ask someone, hey, where'd you stay? It doesn't necessarily have to be one of the big four. Or I guess you can also throw in what choice as well. But like, it could just be, yeah, I stayed at this property. I stayed at this other property that people haven't heard of, and I had a good time. Oh, how'd you do that? Oh, I redeemed my Aeroplan points because I was able to do it through Chase with my Aeroplan points. It only cost me 15,000 points as compared to it would have been 20,000 Hyatt points every single night. So this is something that I hope that from this live, more people end up doing. And I also hope from this live that more people end up going to Points Travel 101, which is my website, and I have a course that I'm selling. Thank you to the first two people who purchased my course, which was Stan the Credit Frog and also Chad Pennycuff. I really appreciate that. And then the other people who have also purchased the course, thank you. It's actually done better than I thought, so I'm really happy about that. I mean, I think I know it's good information, so I'm not saying it did better than I thought. You always wonder when you create something, people are even going to want it, but no, it's been a good response. And for the people who've also signed up for my newsletter, I've got a decent amount of people I've seen go to the website and just check it out. But if you want to learn how to be able to book like a pro and just feel confident with your bookings, I promise you that from my course is going to save you so much time as compared to what if you just decide to try to go figure it out yourself. So if you want to become a booking expert, go check out my course, pointstravel101.com. And if you want to just get my newsletter, where I'm going to be having different points deals that I'm going to be sending out, and then also writing some different articles, then go sign up for the newsletter on the website as well. But yeah, Points Travel 101. Check that out. Alrighty. What do you say? Nah, he got it first. Hold on. We say, Alaska miles are incredibly good. Distance based. Yeah, Alaska miles are really good. So it's because of I think really it's the short distance span that ends up being the best. And it's because when you're looking at farther distance, except for specifically like, I would say there ends up being like Starlux. Outside of Starlux, a lot of the other ones that if you end up looking at booking, it's not really the best deal. Like if you're looking at booking Japan Airlines, sure, you can do it with Alaskan, but it doesn't end up being the best deal. You can do it better with American, and then even at the higher price that it is, if you take advantage of the transfer bonus with something like British Airways, then you can book it for a very similar price, but it's going to end up, the tax and fees are more, but the miles usually are harder to come by with Alaska as compared to British Airways, which is a transfer partner of everyone. So I can acquire British Airways Avios at a significantly higher rate. Like if you can get at 3x the rate, then you start to wonder what's the point of even trying to get the other one. However, if it is a transfer partner, then it can make a lot of sense. And I think that the short haul flights really is where it shines, and also Starlux. Those are the two that I would say. Oh, we're saying the battle of the JPs. Yes. JP said I got it first. I think we're actually the same age, JP. So I just didn't know when. Cool. Alrighty. Thank everyone here so much for being here. If anyone has any final questions, you can drop it down there. But yeah, pointstravel101.com. Check out my course, and really appreciate everyone coming here tonight. We had over, I think at one point it was like 25, 26 people. So that ends up being good on a Wednesday night, at least for my channel. I know some people can get more, but I'm happy with it. I'm happy to have people stop on by, and hopefully this ends up being great information, and hopefully this ends up being something that more people are thinking about, and they're just thinking a little bit differently when it comes to their hotels that they are loyal to, and also just redeeming hotel points as compared to using the travel portal to stay at hotels. I mean, it really ends up being, I think, specifically for cheaper destinations, Vietnam, Santiago, Chile, like all Southeast Asia. If you go over to maybe even Istanbul, if you go over to Prague, then these are the places where you start to go, oh, okay, yeah. Yes, what's the price for the website? So the price for the course is $499. So it's $499 to get the course, $499. Yes. So check out the course. You can look at it. And also additionally, what comes with getting the course is I give you a 1-hour consultation. So you can either do it, I wouldn't necessarily say do it immediately. So I would say go through the course. And then after you go through the course, if for any reason you feel uncomfortable, I will just be able to walk you through whatever type of award booking you're trying to do. So with the purchase of the course, you do get an hour consultation where I will help you with any questions, or if you just want to know how to make an award booking, I will show you how to do that. I am very good at that, I promise you. I promise you, like I've said to people before, I'm not going to say I'm the Tom Brady in it, but I'm definitely in the starting lineup when it comes to players in the NFL. I'm very good when it comes to finding award availability. So for anyone out there who is looking to who wants to become good at finding award availability, if you get my course, you'll also get an hour consultation with me. And I promise you, from the $499 spent on it, it's going to save you an enormous amount of time. I've spent too many hours figuring out how to do all this stuff. So instead of you having to waste or use all of those hours, all you gotta do is get the course, and it saves you all that time. But I appreciate everybody. You all have a good rest of your night. Take care. End stream.